What's up, amigos? Commander Jaime here. Long time no see. So yeah, this video is going to be more on personal tips from me. And really what this is going to be focusing is achieving top 8. And so just as an FYI, this is supposed to pair up with a blog article I just published on the Force of the Ocean website. I will provide a link down at the description so you guys can check that out. And so what the intention of that article is for you as a player to apply the tips that I give you and actually apply them in a more personal level. With this video though, I'm more or less gonna give my story of how I went from a casual to an actual competitive player to actually achieving top 8 essentially, and learning how to be consistent with it too. So I hope with both the article and this video, putting them both together actually makes a lot more sense, whereas you guys can improve as players too. Because honestly, we all want to get better and actually achieve a level of success, right? So yeah. So it begins with Yu-Gi-Oh! And I will be at a high level, so I won't be like, for any Vanguard players that never played Yu-Gi-Oh! Don't worry, I'll be at a high level that you can still understand. And I started in Yu-Gi-Oh! And eventually transitioned to Vanguard, and I'll point out why playing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Still helped with my Vanguard career, okay? So let's get started. Honestly, I was going through college, and I haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh! Since like my early high school days with friends and cousins for fun, and honestly, I realized that there were some people, I got connected with some friends, and honestly, they were playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And so I was like, you know what, I want to get back into it. So humble beginnings, you can say. And after playing a while, I actually, eventually a group of us actually went to our first locals. And so one of the things that I think most people experience but aren't willing to admit is their first locals experience. And that's being nervous, excited, and like, oh man, I hope I don't mess up, or I hope I don't like just lose everything and look like a scrub. All those thoughts come to mind, you know? And honestly, my very first game in the tournament, I was very nervous, and I was like thinking to myself, like, don't make a mistake, don't do that, or more or less, if you keep telling yourself on not making a mistake, you will make it. I've been a victim. So I've learned from that too, and as I noticed that I went through the rounds, I got a little more relaxed, more calm, and hey, I did decent, right? At least in my my standard of playing at my first tournament. I got 2 wins, 2 losses. I was like, yeah, that's not bad. But anyway, from that experience, I knew, like, you know what? If I keep doing these, I'm gonna actually be more calm and relaxed, and maybe, you know, build up some confidence in myself, really, and stop being nervous, or, you know, that kind of stuff that we all worry about as we first start to play or do anything new entirely. You know, we're not familiar, we're not comfortable, so it's that aspect, really. And so with me going to locals maybe like once a month or twice a month, I was still going through school. But I mean, whenever I had time going to locals and actually improving, I realized that, you know, in a 4 to 5 round, my record got better. It was from 3-1 or 4-1, depending on the size of the tournament. And so what I learned is that I learned how to actually get better at my deck. I was playing Chaos Agents for Yu-Gi-Oh! Reference. Learning card choices, learning consistency. I didn't know why people ran the maximum number of copies in the deck at first. Until I realized, like, for consistency reasons, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. So Yu-Gi-Oh! 3 copies, Vanguard 4 copies, simple as that. So card choices too, and I learned that there's a difference between a top deck and not a top deck. So just because you have a good deck doesn't mean it's the best deck ever. And so with getting a little better at that, I actually went to my first regional. And so here's a mistake I did. It was in October, I'm going to school still, and I made changes to the deck, and I only played it about 3 times. That's it. I was going to school, working, had a girlfriend, playing collegiate tennis, all that kind of stuff, so obviously Yu-Gi-Oh! Was at the bottom of the barrel. But yeah, I went to my first regional in October, played the deck with the new changes for like 3 times, and honestly, I was second guessing myself, like, crap, do I do this play, or is it better to do this play? And you're taking time in a round in a tournament, which is bad. I learned because then you're more hesitant to make mistakes, you're not confident, you're trying to figure out your own deck while you're playing, which is very frustrating. And at the same time, you're giving your opponent more time to think about how to like react to your turn, which is bad for you. And of course, you know, you don't want to go into time because of you taking too long too. And so it was just a bad experience for me. My first regional. I'm sure other players have had their first experience at a regional kind of disappointing. For me, it was like, man, this sucks. But it wasn't at the It wasn't the regional. It was me. You know, I made the mistake. I took a deck with changes that I wasn't familiar or confident with, or played enough times really. And so that's one lesson that I will give to you guys. Never ever take a deck that you're not confident or familiar with to a big event. It's better to take the next best deck that you are confident in or familiar with enough to take it with you. Your chances of actually winning and having a good time just improve significantly. So that's one thing that I'll give to you in this video. And so that was around 2013. Now going to 2014, I actually finally start winning first at locals. It was my very first time. I was really excited. At the time, I realized that you know, pushing to actually win first place at a locals, maybe I need to play top deck, and so I did. At the time, it was a slow format in Yu-Gi-Oh. I was playing Bujins. There was Fire Fist, Gear, Bujins, and some other decks. So it was a very slow format. I picked Bujins just the way I like them. Reminds me of chess. Some people thought it was boring. Don't get me wrong. Everyone has their preferences, but I learned how to play a top deck well. And because of it, I got first place at my locals. Very exciting. Got prizes, like packs and stuff like that. It was a fun time. It was good and rewarding. You know, it kind of gave you that self boost in your, you know, confidence as a player. You're like, maybe I'm not a scrub after all. And so because of that, I learned how to play a deck well. And I had a positive expectation of me going into a local tournament of actually topping to the point where I got first place. I hope this makes sense, but that's essentially what ended up happening. And so after that, I actually still topped locals and even a different locals before, where I'm placing first, second, and third, and maybe fourth, but I'm still in that top 4 area, which honestly is a really good area in my opinion, where you can consistently perform at and achieve that level. 1, because you get prizes. 2, you know you're up there, essentially. And you're doing something right. And sometimes you may need a little tweak to get you to the first place, or maybe you just got, you know, shafted. Oh, no. Whatever it may be. Luck factor, right? So then the next thing I started learning was a new deck. I started playing Shaddolls later that year. It's a fusion-based deck for the Yu-Gi-Oh players. The thing is, from this deck, it actually set me up for Night Rose in the future. And this is what I mean. And maybe and Aqua Force to an extent, actually. It's the very first deck that I actually played for 6 months or more. And so in Yu-Gi-Oh, that seems like, whoa, you played a deck for 6 months and even more? It's crazy. But Shaddolls tend to, they actually lasted a couple formats, to be honest. Like the main deck stayed the same. We're changing some cards to deal with the current metagame. You know, whether it be Burning Abyss, Clifford's, Necros eventually. Point is, the deck, I got very familiar with it, that the main plays I had optimized, and the deck actually gave a lot of options to most decks, so there was more within the deck that I had to learn with, and that kind of goes into Aqua Force and into Night Rose, or Grand Blue in general, for those players that know what I'm getting at. And honestly, it also helped me realize that I need to tweak little things here in formats, and it's okay to play with the same deck. What happens is that people tend to switch decks because it's the new best deck, but what happens is that you kind of have to start the process over on learning a new deck, getting better at it, and also doing well with it. I hope that makes sense. And so, going into 2015, I started playing a different deck, and this one is called Necros. So Necros is a very decision branch making deck. And it's very similar to Night Rose and Time Leap gears. So the moment you begin your turn, you already have this big decision tree that you have to decide to make this play, which goes into another branch, and then you deviate from there and do your plays. From your main phase, to your battle phase, to your end turn, and even your opponent's turn, really. A similar thing with Night Rose, really. And so it's just a whole different level. It's almost like a different dimension, really, of just knowing how to play your own deck. So another thing that I learned from that, it was a complex deck to learn how to play well. And some decks take longer to master compared to others. And so sometimes people get frustrated where this is taking too long. I don't have time for this. And honestly, you have to decide if it's worth in the investment for a big event for this deck to play, or maybe you want to play a deck that's easier to learn and do some, maybe the second best deck in that format, right? And those are the choices that eventually, as players in the competitive scene, have to make before a big event, because preparation is key for those big events. And so what I also learned from that deck was the matchups. So Necros had this thing called Trishula, and so evidently is that you had to be careful on how you did your first turn and ended it, because you could get Trish by your opponent if you didn't know if they were playing Necros too. Vanguard, you could find out what your opponent's really playing as soon as they flip the Vanguard. Yu-Gi-Oh, you can't. So one key lesson there was mastering and learning the matchups. Learning your matchups in big events are very important, because you already know your first turn, your plans for each matchup, and really you just follow the plan. You don't have to think about your plays. You don't have to think about, oh, how can I beat this deck or anything like that. You just play it, and then you just focus on your opponent more, and you can see mistakes that they make with their deck because you've learned it, or they take more time to figure out their own deck, depending on the skill level of that player too. So use that to your advantage is what I'm saying. The next thing that I went into was in 2016. So this is where I think the transition happens, really. So I'm playing Vanguard at a fun casual level, and I'm playing Yu-Gi-Oh at a competitive level. So during that time, the beginning of 2016, the Incensant Waves came out, so Aquaforce got a huge clan boost. And so I've been playing Thavas for the longest too, since GBT02, with the trial deck as well, with the Lambros Thavas play, And so I actually got acquainted with a good friend of mine, David. He's from Australia. He was actually a really good player and had topped with Aquaforce recently around that time, and he still is a phenomenal player, trust me. And I got the opportunity to actually talk to him. He actually helped me with some tips. We even practiced a few games, that kind of thing, getting better at Aquaforce. But the things that I learned from him was actually applicable to a very general basis, resource management, thinking ahead, your turns and that kind of thing, your opponent's turns. Try to predict more. Is it really worth doing this play in this turn right now? Because you can set yourself up for victory the next turn instead to guarantee it, or you risk it all and then lose to your opponent the next turn, which you don't want to do. So I hope that makes sense. With that was happening in the background, so my Vanguard skills were improving in that aspect. But I think that influenced my Yu-Gi-Oh aspect too, because for the longest I've been hitting this, I guess, mental barrier, I would call it. And what I mean by that, Yu-Gi-Oh has bigger events where it has top 32, top 32, not just top 8, top 32. If you get top 32, you get an invite to Nets, you get a playmat and everything, that kind of thing, or depending on the regional. Yeah, depending on the regional. But anyway, you get the invite. That's what's important. You're going to Nets. So with that in mind, I actually was being stuck at 35th place. I'm so close to the top 32, but I'm yet so far away, right? And so finally I broke through early that year. I got 20th place. So I got into top 32, got the invite. I was playing Pepe when it was full power. So for those Yu-Gi-Oh players, a lot of mirror matches and a lot of thinking with some well players. I faced some anti-meta. I faced a Xion and Naturia Beast in one point. I won that one though, but yeah, for those Yu-Gi-Oh players. But essentially, at this point, from 2013 and it's 2016 now, that's almost 3 years, give or take, right? And so during this time, I've already learned a lot about the game, a lot about decks, a lot about myself and making plays, making mistakes. I finally had some, almost a mental click, and it's whoa, it makes sense. And sometimes you see that with other competitive players in the competitive scene. It's all of a sudden, this guy came out of nowhere and he's topping and topping and topping. It's how did it, what? And some people I knew that guy and he didn't top before. Did he just have an epiphany all of a sudden? And honestly, it's not really. It took time, it took mistakes, it took failures to get to that level of success. And it's an accumulation of practice and consistency of all that added up, really. So it just doesn't happen overnight. It almost seems like it, but over time you just learn it. I hope that makes sense. And so what I want to get into now is that because I actually got into top 32 in Yu-Gi-Oh, I think I broke that mental barrier. And now success bleeds into other areas of your life. So in this case, it bled into Vanguard. And so what I mean by that, I got more consistent at playing Aqua Force really well. I actually topped with Blue Wave, got my LCQ invite for ARG, so I went to ARG Nets. So I actually, in that July, I went to 2 nationals, one for Yu-Gi-Oh and one for Vanguard for ARG, and the other one for Konami. And so Yu-Gi-Oh I didn't do so well, but I had a good time. And then the Vanguard National ones, I really did well. I actually was playing 7 Cs at the time. That was before 7 Runner shenanigans. But with 7 Cs, I actually played well too. I took some time to practice beforehand. I didn't want to take a deck that I wasn't familiar with to a big event. That's a big mistake. So I took the time to learn it. I knew my matchups too. Most of the decks I faced, except for like maybe 1 or 2 rounds, I didn't know how to really play against it. But the other decks that I faced, I already knew how to play against them. And so that actually got me to top 16 in ARG Nats. Got into, I think, 10th place overall. But yeah, and because of that big event, I actually got interviewed by Mason Clark, Science of Vanguard. For those who still know about that. I hope Mason's doing well. Shout out to you. But yeah, thanks to that interview, it kind of gave me the more, I guess, confidence in actually making my own YouTube channel. Here we are, right? Hey, it's like, if I'm gonna make videos, I hope somebody watches them, right? And in order for people to actually watch your videos, I think for me was like, hey, I had some results with this deck at this event. Let me do a deck profile. Hopefully someone can actually get something from it and actually help them with winning their next event or something like that. That was literally the intent of the channel, was helping other players achieve to what I've achieved, and probably help some people further along just like to snap, oh yeah, that's where I'm lacking, or something like that, And so that's how the channel came to be. And honestly, a little later after I posted my Blue Wave video and my 7 Cs video, somebody reached out to me that I'd never met on Facebook, and he said, hey, thanks to your Blue Wave video, it actually helped me out, and I got my top at my ARG event at like my area. And I'm like, I just wanted to say thank you. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. It's my boy Alan Smith, so I hope he's doing well. He's topped a couple of times too. I actually did an interview video too a year ago too. So definitely a good guy to stay with and contact. And so now going into 2017. Whew, talking a lot. 2017 was probably one of my biggest years, to be quite honest. And so what I mean by that, very in the beginning in January, I actually did an ARG event, top 8 with Blue Wave with the new, I think it's GBT09 set. So did really well. So it's like, okay, I topped from a previous event to another event, and now it's January, and the next year I'm topping again. So I'm being consistent about it, right? Because there's players that top events and then never make a top again. And it's because that's important, because you know that you've learned enough to be at that level of success, so you're being consistent with it. And so after that, I started playing Night Rose, and this is the big one. Whew. Night Rose is a decision tree deck. It's a very complex deck to play well. It took a lot of practice. It does a lot of plays. I mean, you had to worry about resource management. You had to worry about decking out and that kind of thing. And I learned how to be more consistent with it, because it milled a lot. You can selectively mill to an extent, or you can do some resource management plays to extend plays during the battle phase, that kind of thing. Like, it just was a complex deck. And I started playing early that year and went into the spring BCS for Indy, made it to day 2, and that's where I got knocked out. But I learned a lot. I made a few mistakes, but nothing too bad. I think what hurt me was the 5 grade 3s in the deck. Just 5. So I did get grade stuck, and I lost those ones. But it's something that I picked up, and I learned some of the GB2 plays you can do against Link Joker too. Just to be a little bit specific, but things that you learn along the way, and sometimes some top plays, or not top plays Like when you have one card left in deck, what do you do? That kind of thing. So that happened to me. But yeah, and then honestly, I still kept Night Rose throughout that year, and it came to August, basically for the fall BCS. And boy, um, it was a long 2 days, but made it to top 8 in a BCS event. Not only that, went into the finals, went into game 3 with the mighty Kevin Cho. It was Night Rose versus Time Leap, and I got second overall. So I was very close. I wanted it all. But for me, that goal for that event was achieving top 8, and I got way further along than I thought I would, and it's just awesome. If I were to go back and tell you what made it get to that point for those days, I just knew that I knew my deck the best I could. I played it so long. I know the plays, the matchups, being consistent, knowing when to do in the situation, outplaying the opponent because, you know, different skill levels. The mistakes that I've done before and the mistakes of others I've seen, I learned from those, essentially. And that helped me get to that high level top 8, essentially. And because of it, honestly, it was really great. It actually got me more well known in the community. A lot of people in the Grand Blue area started like messaging me on Facebook, Discord, that kind of thing. They're like, hey, can you help me out with this? I saw your deck profile, you did this and that. Like, why did you do that? You know, I never thought of using Grenache that way. Chappy, you know, stuff like that. And it's helping other players with that knowledge and experience. So, you know, even Solon Vanguard, he reached out to me around that time or a little after. He's like, this is really good. Like, holy crap. I'm like, oh, thank you. He's like, I got questions for you. I'm like, I'm happy to answer. But yeah, shout out to Solon. So yeah, and what I've really learned is preparation to an event is key. Preparation. If you go to Solon's channel, he does a whole video on the preparation that he did for one event and topped. And it's really you win by event and event by preparation. And so 2018 comes along now, and it's like, okay, can I still stay consistent at topping? I actually was playing Savas again because they got support with Alexandros and Ruler Tavas, you know, good stuff. I learned key matchups like the Overlord matchup, the Chaos. Again, just applying what I've learned already, just learning stuff like matchups like that. And I got at top 8 again at an ARG Indy, 60% event, 70% event. I got 4th place overall. Got a picture and everything. It was really cool. Actually, 2 of my other friends, Miguel and Eduardo, made top 8 too. So 3 of us were in top 8. So that was awesome too. And then the next month we had Team League in Chicago in the Rosemont area. The 3 of us actually made a team, and we actually made 4th place overall as a team. One of the things that I will tell you from this video, it's also in the article, unity is key with the team aspect. You know, when people are not doing so well, help them up. You know, don't let them fall into the trap where they make a mistake and they just kind of like hold on to it, which affects their plays for the next games and the rest of the day, which hurts you guys as a team. And also encouraging players like, hey, you did that play well. You know, that's awesome. And then just recognizing is like, wow, thank you, man. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, right? It goes a long way. And as a team being unified gets you up there in the top, you know, top 8, top 4 brackets, right? And that's ultimately what you want, right? And so with after that, really, my last top 8, really the last time that I really played competitive Vanguard was at a ARG event at Card Fighters on the Ground in Chicago. I actually played Ninjas, you know, New Batama, Shironu. So when the new GBT 14 stuff came out and, you know, domination was a thing still. And so, you know, I got top 8 with that. Again, got familiar with the deck, learned it well, learned matchups, that kind of thing, really. And so to sum it up, really, it's just there isn't really a secret to winning at big events and also to consistently topping. The secret is that you have to learn how to do that. And honestly, it's through experience and learning from others, and then sometimes going a little further beyond that. And sometimes some players learn some things differently, but end up being the same thing. And so with that, that's really it. That's my story. That's how I went from a casual, a scrub, to a competitive player, to achieving top 8, and to consistently achieving top 8, essentially. So Some closing thoughts. I always gave credit to the people that helped me out, whether it be my friends online or my friends locally, and also even to my mentor, David. So anybody that helped me out, really, even people like family and friends, they don't know that you're playing the card game and they don't understand why you play it. But even sometimes them either being there for you or like rooting for you, like I hope you win or something like that. You just give thanks. Especially with friends and stuff like that. It's like, hey, I wouldn't have gotten this far without your help. Even though if I didn't make it to top 8, I still wouldn't have gotten this far without you. I hope that makes sense. And honestly, anybody that was helping you, it makes them feel good inside. So, splash the goodness. But yeah. And one of the things that I will say is you will fail your way to success. So be prepared to fail a lot. And it's okay because you will succeed. Okay? So be consistent, prepare for an event, have mentors, learn from your mistakes, learn from others, be patient with yourself, and enjoy the journey. All right? I mean, I started with 2013, getting back into Yu-Gi-Oh! And I told you my story up to 2018. So that's about 5 years time, and yeah. So yeah, I hope this helps. Like I said, I made an article, so feel free to go to check that out and see where you can apply some of the concepts that I mentioned in this video and also more info for you to improve as a player. All right, amigos? It was good seeing you, and best of luck to you guys for the next event, all right? Like, share, subscribe, and comment down below if you have any comments. All right, brothers? Take it easy. Peace.